Good afternoon. My name is Matt Robbie, and on behalf of Christian Brothers Services, I would like to welcome you to our Spring 2019 webinar series. Over the next several months, our webinars will explore alumni relations, cybersecurity, Medicare, the R1 visa program, planned giving, and many other topics. For a full listing of all of our webinars and their dates, please visit cbservices.org/webinars.php. Today's webinar, the first in our series, is entitled Alumni Relations, Treasures in Our Midst. Before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. Please note, audio will stream through your computer, so please make sure your speaker volume is up and at an audible level. A copy of today's presentation can be found by clicking on the light green icon with a piece of paper on it at the bottom of the screen. You will then be able to download the presentation. We will be using a lecture format for this webinar. Our presenter will answer your questions during and at the end of the presentation. However, at any time during the webinar, you can type your questions into the question box, which can be found to the left side of the presentation window on your screen. If your question box is not already opened, you can open it by clicking on the purple Q&A icon at the bottom of the page. Just type your question in the box and hit submit. At the end of the presentation, please take a moment to let us know what you thought about today's topic and speaker. On the right-hand side of your screen is a brief 5-question survey. By completing the survey, you are not only providing us and the presenter with valuable feedback on today's webinar, but you will also be given the opportunity to enter a drawing for a $100 gift card at the end of the webinar series. And at the end of the survey, don't forget to sign up for the Catholic School Management mailing list. Now, before we get started, let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God. Creator God, through your world and people that surround us, we pray that we may grow more aware this day of your life-giving presence. Open our minds and our hearts to apply the knowledge from today's webinar for the good of all. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. Let me introduce our presenter, Mary J. Foley. Mary J. Foley is Managing Director at Christian Brothers Services and oversees mission advancement in Catholic school management. Mary brings 35 years of experience to the non-profit world and offers a wealth of strategic leadership skills and insights to the educational, religious, and social service arenas. She hates having to listen to introductions like these and go on and suspects that you feel the same. So I will just say that she is not only extremely experienced, but also enormously passionate and enthusiastic about helping our members and clients enjoy every possible benefit with comprehensive, effective advancement programs, and of course, that includes alumni relations. So let's go ahead and get started with Mary J. Foley presenting Treasures in Our Midst.
Thank you, Matt, and thanks to all of you for joining us. I am very pleased to be with you to discuss alumni relations and privileged to represent Catholic School Management and Mission Advancement, 2 divisions of the Christian Brothers Services constellation. We are looking to continually provide more resources and opportunities to our members and clients, and these are the services that are available through Catholic School Management and Mission Advancement. I'm not going to dwell on these here because you can download the presentation. But I did want to share with you some upcoming resources that you might want to take advantage of. The Catholic School Management Letter that Matt referenced earlier is available now after 40 years on a paid subscription basis. It is now a free publication through Christian Brothers Services. You can sign up to receive this yourself. You can sign up boards, members, staff members, volunteers. You can also access prior issues via our website. So when you get to the evaluation page at the end of this presentation, first of all, make sure you fill it out because you can win a $100 gift card. And secondly, there's a box there to check if you want to receive the newsletter. If any of you are going to be attending the Alaska Conference in Houston, I will be there. Please say hello. I'll be talking on amping up your annual fund and banking on your board. We have the ever-fabulous Greg Duvetter from Catholic School Management, author of our most recent Catholic School Management letter, presenting his webinar on paddling beside a steamship, finding your place and pace in the 21st century. Anyone who's feeling a little overwhelmed these days, this will be a great opportunity to hear from an expert. He's also speaking at the National Catholic Education Association. All of you who will be attending and are interested in STREAM will definitely want to go to Greg's session. And Sister Carol Semino will be talking about Meet the Millennial Parents. If you have a focus on enrollment, that is one that you do not want to miss. I will also be at the conference. Please say hello. And for those of you who like to think well in advance, my next webinar topic will be on planned giving, April 25th. Thank you very much, not only for joining us today, but for all that you do on behalf of your schools, religious orders, apostolic works. We are very, very thrilled to have you working with us to build up the kingdom through our organizations. Now let's get to the heart of the matter. Oh, by the way, let me just say, if you've now downloaded the slides and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, there are so many of them, we're going to be on this webinar until midnight, I agree that it would certainly be wonderful and exciting to talk about alumni relations until midnight, but we will be wrapping up as scheduled. A lot of the slides are simply sample materials that we thought might be useful for you to have, so you're not having to frantically take notes throughout the session. So fear not, we will end in a timely fashion. Okay, so why do you want to start an alumni program? There are all sorts of reasons, and I'm sure many of you already have alumni programs. Some of you are just getting started. But often what we hear is, well, we just want our grads to stay in touch, or we want to communicate more effectively with our alumni and let them know what's going on in the school today. We want to have more of a relationship, a connection. We'd like them to volunteer. We'd like them to enroll their children. And on occasion, we sometimes hear that we would like to start an alumni program because we want their money. Now, all of these are valid and represent not only benefits for your school or religious order, but also present your alumni with valuable opportunities for involvement and engagement. I know some of you are saying, yes, but Mary, another reason we should have an alumni program is that according to the National Standards and Benchmarks for Effective Catholic Elementary and Secondary Schools, Operational Vitality Standard number 13 says an excellent Catholic school enacts a comprehensive plan based on a compelling mission for institutional advancement. And of course, that includes alumni. I do want to get back now to the financial piece. Many of you are probably familiar with these slides that are produced by Giving USA. Every year we look at where does the money come from and where does it go in the world of philanthropy. So as you can see here, the two areas that people most want to support are education and religion. Well, doesn't that bode well for all of the people on this webinar and all of the organizations that Christian Brothers Services is privileged to assist? The other piece that's really important about the state of philanthropy is that the vast majority of this money comes from individuals. And your alumni parents, those are all individuals, and for all of you who are part of active schools, that number gets bigger and bigger and bigger every single year. So we're kind of in the sweet spot of fundraising and interest areas for fundraising. We often talk about fundraising in terms of the fundraising pyramid. There's also an institutional advancement pyramid, where we look at the different aspects of advancement, knowing that everything that we do has relationship building at its heart. It's important that your alumni effort doesn't stand by itself, but really is the natural evolution of your student recruitment efforts. You know, from the moment you first learn of a potential student, potential family interested in your school, that should be the beginning of a relationship that never, ever ends until the last member of that family moves on to their heavenly reward. And of course, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even dream of moving on to their heavenly reward until they had already made arrangements to leave a bequest to your school. So we want the alumni program to be fully integrated into all of the other aspects of your advancement program and your school. Now, some of you might be saying, but we're not a school. And in our promotion of this webinar, we did very specifically say, you know, we also would encourage any members of religious orders who have previously or currently sponsored schools to also participate in this, because alumni are an important constituency for you. Whether your schools are still open or they have been triumphantly concluded, your alumni audience really has a great attachment to you, and certainly they are enormous beneficiaries of you. You know, your schools and the religious orders that sponsored them have made an enormous contribution to the common good. The blessings and benefits that the children who attended these schools have, they carry with them for all the days of their lives, and it's because of you. So their gratitude is out there. It's a matter of engaging with them, cultivating them. Sometimes it's a matter of finding them. In fact, the four pillars of a good alumni relations program are research, finding them, and staying on top of the alumni information, communicating, engaging, and then soliciting them. So let's talk about these four pillars. But first, I want to say, anytime you hear me talk about alumni, you should also, in your mind, be hearing alumni parents, because these are two audiences, and both of them represent huge opportunities for your schools and your orders. Also, for those of you who are joining us from girls' schools, anytime I say alumni, you should hear alumnae, because we want to make sure we're using all the appropriate terminology. Okay, so let's say you're just getting started. Well, an important thing for you to be looking at is your magic number. How many alumni are out there in total? When did your school start? Did you have a graduation class that very first year? What's the total universe that you are looking, and where can we start finding these records? I would suggest for many of you, head to the basement. Some of you might be sitting on cabinets and cabinets and cabinets full of old files. If your school has closed, then your records might be with the archive system of your diocese or the religious orders. For those of us of a certain age, we grew up going to Catholic school and hearing for all the years we were there about what might end up on our permanent record. Well, thank goodness for those permanent records, because that's how a lot of schools are launching their alumni programs or using them to update their records if they already have an alumni program. So you need to get started by figuring out how many people are we looking for, and then for whom do we have addresses, telephones, and email addresses. Once you know what you're looking for, then there are lots of ways to find them. And let me just say, even if your program has been around for many years, staying on top of your people is essential. You think about it, when you move from one home to another, you think, okay, I've got to let the electric company know, and I've got to let the gas people know, and I've got to let the newspaper people know. But very rarely does someone say, oh, and I better let my elementary or secondary school know so that they can update my alumni records. People, sadly, do not think that way yet, but as your efforts advance, I'm sure they will. According to the Census Bureau, the average American moves 11.7 times in their lives. And on top of that, you also have the challenge, if you have girls going to your schools, of them getting married and changing their names, or getting divorced and changing their names. So we have to be on top of all the possibilities for finding and reaffirming contact information for our alumni. This slide shows you a whole bunch of options. There are many, 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 and what will work for you will vary based on whether or not you're an order school, a diocesan school, if you're currently open, or if your school has already closed. I am not going to be doing a dramatic recitation of all of these, but I did want to mention a couple of them. The alumni parents. So often those people who sent their children to your school have a very good chance of still being at the permanent record address. So often that's one of the best ways to get started. Are the parents still there? Okay. And our experience has been that the parents of the children who were so enormously blessed to attend your school are more than happy to share that information with you. In fact, one of our clients said, oh, yes, we were doing a telephone outreach to alumni parents to update records, and one of the people that we spoke to said, oh, yes, well, here's her address, and here's her phone number, and this is her cell number, and this is her number at work, and you tell her I said she should give because you did everything for her, and she should give back. So the alumni parent aspect is a really great way to do it. Another is if you have anything that you're coming up on, to do a countdown. This is something that makes it really exciting. I was working with a school that was preparing for a 100th anniversary, and they had not had an alumni effort prior to that. It was a small school, so they were only looking for a couple thousand names, but they had been looking for a while, so they had narrowed it down where they only needed 300 more names. And so it was like, we have so many days until the all-school reunion and anniversary, and we need 300 more names. And so they use that in a lot of their messaging to the found alumni. We're still looking for these people from this class. So a countdown can add a lot of excitement to it. If you are a school that has a lot of generations, my grandfather went here, I went here, et cetera, and you host a grandparent day, if you see down here where it says Legacy/GP Days, you'd be amazed at how much alumni information you can pick up during Grandparent Day. Some schools will have, as a matter of course, a list of all of the lost alumni by class posted in areas that all the grandparents will go through. And often it's like, what do you mean Jenny Martin's lost? She's not lost. I just had lunch with her yesterday. And they can fill in a lot of the gaps for you. And then the last thing I want to mention on this slide is pew cards. So for those of you who are connected to churches in some fashion, either you have multiple parishes feeding into your schools, or you have a one-to-one relationship with a school, we know that in several weeks we have a wonderful opportunity where a lot of people will be coming home for the holidays, coming home to celebrate Easter, going to church. Possibly even some people who don't go to church regularly are going to be doing it because their mother makes them. So we got, record attendance at Mass on Easter weekend. This is a great time to have a small card in the pew just saying, hey, we're planning our all-school reunion or something, and we don't want anyone to miss out. Please share any alumni information that you have. And you put it in with your little golf pencils, and you'd be, everyone knows you have to get there early to get a seat for the high holy days, so now you've given them something to do to fill in the time. So there are lots of options in this area, and, even more than we can probably fit on a slide. But I would encourage you to take advantage of as many of these as you possibly can.
Mary, we actually have our first question from a participant. What's the school registration reference? Isn't that for registering students?
Yes, it is. But here is one of the things that we find. So, a student wants to come to your school, great. And then we have to fill out all the information in the world. We ask a million questions about the mother and the father and where they work and what they do and, all the emergency information and this and that. Well, it wouldn't be hard at all to say, what grade school did you attend? What high school did you attend? What was your year of graduation? What was your name at graduation? So that you get the maiden name of the mothers. I was with a school, they were launching their alumni program, and one of the things that they discovered, to their happy surprise, was that a great many of the current parents were also alumni, but they didn't have a way of capturing that. So they decided to add this to both school registration and parish registration. And then the other thing, and I thought this was so wonderful and so like us as Catholic people. So, you get a school registration form for Grace Captain Holes. And it says, Mary went to Queen of Martyrs Elementary School and Mother Macaulay High School. Stephen went to, Our Lady of Peace Elementary School and Bennett Academy. Well, maybe none of those are your school, but you could share that information with those schools to help them out. So it's a wonderful cooperative spirit amongst our Catholic schools. With all of your efforts, you need to be constantly reminding people that you're looking to update your alumni records. And it is kind of nice. These efforts tend to snowball, but you want to use all the available vehicles that are out there. All of you are involved in education in some way, and you know that the key with students is to repeat. We don't say, a squared plus b squared equals c squared once and expect that they'll understand. So they say it takes 8 to 18 reinforcements to begin to change a behavior or a mindset. So you always want to be promoting in every way that you can your alumni research efforts. One of my favorite stories is about a Catholic school principal. She was a graduate of the school, had been a teacher there, and then became principal. So she'd been there for years and years and years. So she knew everything about all these kids. And they had a big event every year that involved a carnival and a beer garden and, face painting and all that. And lots of people attended, lots of alumni came back. Well, she always worked the beer tent because she knew how old people were and if they were legitimate for being able to drink. So when they started their alumni program, when one of her students would come up, she'd say, hey, did you fill out your card in the alumni tent? Oh, I'll get to that later. It's like, then no beer for you. And they captured quite a lot of data right then and there. So the next few slides here are just some samples. This is a sample text for a Pew card, and then on the flip side, you would capture all their key data, name, address, email, etc. The lost letters, this is where you send a letter to all the people that you've currently found saying, hey, we're trying to find everybody else. Here are the people that are missing from your class. And then this would be a sample of the enclosure that you put in there. Typically, when we do the lost letters, we would include the class that the graduate was in as well as the one before and the one after because, we have friends, we have relatives, etc. Lots of schools have used the lost letter thing. I've never heard of anyone not picking up at least 10% of their lost audience through this. If, of course, you find them, someone makes their presence known to you, you want to say, thank you so much for letting us know, and here are ways that you can be involved, and so on and so forth. They're sending you a signal when they send in your information, so you want to make sure that you respond. All of these efforts have proven very, very successful over time and should be part of your ongoing program. But we also want to take advantage of the new and excellent technology and the options that are there as a result. So there are electronic research services that will take your old data and search out new addresses, phone numbers, and emails. This is a great way to kind of leapfrog your efforts if you're getting started. And if you already have a good list, they can verify your addresses and add emails. They can do what they call an email append for you. Obviously, social media, at your events, make sure that that you've got your alumni update page set up on your kiosks, have people walking around with iPads to do it. Include a link to your alumni update page of the website in all your e-communications, and of course make sure that you have a strong presence on your website.
Mary, we have another question from a participant. You have here electronic research services. They sound great, but aren't they expensive?
Well, I'm glad. That's a good question because, yes, of course, you're going to have to pay for this, but it is a good investment. You will pay, most of the services, the way they work is you only pay for the people that they find. And what they do is they give you a confidence rating. So, for example, the person we mentioned earlier, Steve Tastenholz. Okay, well, that's a fairly distinctive last name. And let's say, he was from a small town in Iowa. We're probably going to be able to track that guy down. John Smith in Chicago, that's going to be harder. So the find rate on that they're going to have different confidence ratings. So any service you talk to will be able to tell you, we, for a school like yours, we would anticipate a find rate of X with a confidence rating of Y. You can also, this is working together, like in all areas of life, pays off because usually the price is determined by the number of records you submit. So let's say, there's a great discount if you bring over 10,000 records. And you're thinking, I only got 3,500 total alumni that ever came from this school. I'm going to have to pay a higher rate. It's like, no, they'll let you group together with other schools. In a number of dioceses, this is happening on a regular basis where a group of schools will come together. They put all their data together, but you're only getting your data back. So it's not like, it's being shared with the other schools. But by working cooperatively, you get a lower price. All right, the last thing here is website. I just want to talk a little bit about that. As your program goes, your website alumni pages will grow more and more and more robust. If you're just getting started, you want to make sure that at least you have these elements there. Now, I'm sure that many of you are thinking, but Mary, wait. There's something really important missing here. What is important? Yes, the Donate Now page. What do we know about alumni? They love you. They're grateful. They are enormous beneficiaries of your school, of your religious order's commitment to Catholic education. So you don't want to just restrict your Donate Now page to the Donate Now section, the Support Us section, the Giving section of your website. You want to have that link in a number of places on your website, and absolutely on your alumni page of the website. Remember, the number one reason why people give is because it makes them feel good about themselves. People want that opportunity, but you know what else they want? They want convenience. So by having that there, you make it easier for them to feel good about themselves by giving to your school. Next up, we have a sample welcome page for your alumni section of the website. And the registration option that I mentioned on the previous page, basically what you want to do is, if your website will allow for this, if you can make this just a simple fillable form so that, click, they're in and out in no time. Because one of the things that's really important for you to realize is that all of your alumni, all of them, every single one, they're very busy and they're very important. So you want to do everything in your power to make this seem like one of the simplest things you could do. In addition to getting their, geographic contact information, you also want to invite them to share. This question about what do you remember most fondly, that will increase the completion rate of the form. And of course, if they're going to the trouble of saying, here's my information, I want you to be able to contact me, then you also want to invite them to get involved. Assist the alumni program. Maybe they can help you find other graduates. Maybe they can help you plan events. Maybe they can help you do whatever it is you're trying to do with your alumni program. And don't think that this is just looking to burden them or obligate them or task them with things. Research shows that people who volunteer live longer than people who don't. So quite frankly, it seems to me, if you are not inviting them to become involved, if you're not giving them opportunities to be volunteers, you are just trying to sentence them to an early death. And that is not nice, that is not Christian, that is not who we are. If people fill out your form, you want to have an automatic response. Your website should be more than capable of doing this. So as soon as they submit their information, poof, they get an email response that says, thank you so much. So two things here. One, it is important to have a response. And two, if you say something, like we have in this example, we will be in touch soon with news, you need to actually be in touch soon with news. So if you don't think that you're going to have that, then just make your auto response be, thank you very, very much. We're so delighted to have gotten your information. The database, when you're getting started, you just need this kind of basic information on your database. Over the course of time, your database is going to grow and grow and grow with more and more detail about each of your alumni as you encounter them. What activities they attend, how they're involved as volunteers, what their giving history is, what they give to, what is the stimulus for the giving, what is their response. It will become enormous over time, what you keep in your database, allowing you to have a more and more personalized relationship with those alumni. Now, I'm sure that the question that is burning in all of your minds, especially for those of you who might be just getting started, is, okay, well, who's doing all of this? Who's getting all this information out of the dusty basement and putting it into some kind of an Excel sheet so we can send it off to the electronic research? Well, the good news here is it actually does go faster than you think. So, some schools, they say, hey, we've got people who, maybe it's the front office and they have periodic downtime. So during that time, they're just going to be entering in the information from the dusty old records. Other schools say, let's just get this done. Let's hire a temp. Sometimes board members volunteer to pay for a temp to do this, to just get it done. And isn't that a kind and wonderful thing from them? Volunteers are always wonderful as long as they have good attention to detail. Same thing, older students who are seeking service hours, that could be a possibility. The key is to use those who will be committed to accuracy so that you're not constantly having to correct what's been entered or not knowing that it's incorrect, and then you irritate the alumni by misspelling their names or having the wrong year of graduation where suddenly they're 10 years older.
Mary, we have another question from a participant. At the bottom of the slide, you mentioned status. What does that mean?
Oh, excellent. So you've got this wonderful database, and you want to keep it up with all of your alumni. One of the things that we've seen as schools' alumni programs have evolved is that some have made the mistake of when someone dies, they take them out of the database. Well, the problem with that is that, 5 years later, someone's saying, let's search for all our lost alumni. And then that person shows up as lost as opposed to deceased. So they spend a lot of time trying to find that person, only to discover that he or she has moved on to their heavenly reward, again, hopefully having made a bequest. So this is just used for, you just enter deceased when you know that, and you never take anyone out of the database. Everyone stays in. And that actually also leads me to something else. There's often a question about who counts as alumni. What do you have to be a graduate, or is it okay if you just attended? And our posture is, if someone wants to be considered part of your alumni program, let them, whether they were there for 10 years or 2 weeks. If they want to affiliate this way and be part of your community, you should let them. And if at the end of this we have any time, allow me to tell you two stories. One is about the non-graduates, and the other is about keeping original addresses in your database. It occurs to me, whoops, flipped ahead here. Okay, moving on. So we talked a lot about finding our alumni, but there's sort of no point to finding them and updating your records and always making sure that your percent of found alumni is strong if we aren't going to be communicating with them regularly. And there are here many ways in which you can stay in touch with them. When you are first getting started with your alumni program, you tend to focus on general communication, where everyone gets whatever it is that you're in a position to share. So it could be everyone's getting the newsletter. Everyone is getting the invitations to the all-school reunion, things like that. But over time, you're going to do that in a slightly different way. One thing I want to specifically mention here, though, is postcards. I've been doing work where groups of schools come together to, establish alumni programs and then also move into annual fund solicitation efforts. And so you obviously don't want to find someone and 2 minutes later be soliciting them for an annual fund gift. You want to have some communication in advance. And one of the things that's been really popular and cost-effective is a postcard just announcing you're launching your alumni program, you're inviting people to be involved, etc., and including a picture of some of your graduates. In fact, it occurs to me that it's entirely possible that some of the people on this webinar were once in this classroom. So find those old photos. When you dig around into the basement file cabinets, you'll probably find old photos that would be wonderful memories. One of the schools we worked with sent this picture out to the alumni they had found through the Electronic Research Service, and the response was incredibly heartwarming. Oh, I remember, sister. Oh, I remember that classroom. I think that's my paper up on the bulletin board. It's just been terrific. So postcards can be a very low-cost option. So, you know, on the off chance that some of you might be on a budget, I just wanted to mention that. Over the course of time, you will also be able to segment and personalize more and more of your communications. That's a sign of a mature alumni program, that you're moving into, you'll always have some general communications, but the more that you can divide your alumni group into smaller groups with similar characteristics, the more effective it's going to be. You know, think about it. Some of you have alumni who are 90 years old, some of you, and at the same time you have alumni who are 19 years old. What's the likelihood that they're going to want everything the same? So ways in which you can segment are here listed on the left. A real key segmentation thing is, do we have an email address for these people or not? Because if you do, you can communicate with them more often because it is free or close to free. But then all these other categories show ways to further segment your audience. Within each communication, you want as often as possible to personalize as much as you can. So for example, let's say the choir is participating in a competition in Arizona in February, and you happen to know that a great many of your alumni live in Arizona in February. Well then, you know, the geography piece is going to be really important. Let's find all the people there, invite them to the performance, invite them to a little cocktail party afterwards in the home of one of the alumni, and then bring them up to date on all the great things that are going on in your school. The possibilities include these and many others.
Mary, we have another follow-up question from one of the participants. What does it mean as far as name choice and name repetition?
Okay, so, you know, instead of dear alumnus or dear friend, we want to always say, you know, dear Kevin. Unless, of course, we know that although his name was Kevin, no one has ever called him Kevin in his whole life. He has been Chet to one and all and beloved as Chet. So a field in your database, as your database grows, is often preferred name. You know, my name is Maureen, but I've always, you know, been called Muffy. My name is Bill, but I've always been called Biff, that sort of thing. And then the repetition piece is that research shows that, you know, if you send a letter to Dear Chet, in the body of the letter, you know, as you know, Chet, that will increase readership and response. Thank you. That was a good question. Here's an example of here's an example where some items go to all of the groups and other just to targeted audiences. And the whole point of segmentation and personalization is that it makes people feel like you're communicating with them more one-on-one. And of course, when people feel like they're engaging with you in a more personalized way, they're more likely to become involved, to become engaged. And of course, that's the third pillar that we talked about, engagement. You want them to attend things. You want to invite them to give you advice on things. This is sort of a cycle, this list on the left-hand side. You know, where does it begin? Well, maybe I go to a class reunion. And then, oh, I respond to a survey that you've sent. Oh, I give to the annual fund. Now I'm on a committee that's helping plan something. Oh, look at me, now I'm on the school board. We want them to give, we want them to be advocating for us. We want them to be spreading the word to one and all. We want them to help us enlist other people to identify key partnerships that could be helpful. You are always looking for people who can add credibility to your school. If you are internal to the school, it is your job to say wonderful things about the school, but your alumni bring a lot of that. When they speak highly of the school, and we all know them, graduates of schools who, they can't wait to tell you where they went to school and all the wonderful things about it. A good place to begin with alumni engagement, of course, is with class reunions. And then as you build that out over time, you can look at, doing geographic reunions. Oh, look, we've got pockets of people in all of these places. Even within where you're located. Let's say you're in a market where, most of your alumni stick around or they're all in the state. Well, even within the state, if you've got a good-sized state, you might have a lot of them up north, a lot of them down south, a lot of them, in the city, a lot of them in the suburbs. You can think about organizing them that way where it's more convenient for them to attend. Some schools do reunions by profession where, let's get all the lawyers together, let's get the doctors together, or maybe it's just interest areas. I recently attended a school that did a great thing. They have a very strong theater program, and they were putting on a show that had been put on 20 years earlier. So they invited all the people who had been involved in that show, the actors, the singers, the dancers, the backstage people, the PR people for the production. Everyone came. They had special seating for them at the theater, and then there was a reception afterwards. And what do you suppose was like the number one thing they said at the reception? Oh, it was wonderful. But don't you think we were a little bit better? Now, some of you might want to, it's like, Mary, all these things are glorious, but, we have one person who has 20% of her time to devote to our alumni programming. So, there's only so much we can do. In that case, I would heartily encourage you to adopt the reunion weekend plan, where all your milestone classes come together on campus for one weekend. And typically what happens is the classes themselves get to choose if they want to be there Saturday for an evening event or Sunday morning. On occasion, we've had really enthusiastic classes who say, we want it all. We want to come do the nighttime thing and the daytime thing. Sometimes you see a breakdown by age where possibly older alumni want to come in the morning rather than be out at night. But the choice should be theirs. Your job within the school is to plan this wonderful event that generally, in both days, starts with Mass, so it counts. And then the individual classes have their receptions. Room 102 is the class of 1969, and room 103 is the class of 1979, et cetera. But then they all come together for dinner. They all come together for, if you're having dancing or a program. Most importantly, they all come together and hear the great message you've crafted to share with them. The key here is twofold. One is, it's a really busy weekend, absolutely, but it's one weekend, as opposed to trying to juggle, maybe you got 10 classes that are going to be reuniting over the course of the year, and then you're using up 10 weekends. Key here, too, is that you want the school to direct as much as possible the gatherings where alumni come together. So often I'll be called to a school, we want to start a reunion, an alumni program. And we find out there are classes that have been having reunions for years and years and years and years, but never involving the school. Well, what a loss for everyone there. Here are more opportunities for engagement, lots of choices for the school to offer, lots of choices for the alumnus. You know how we say in institutional management, you never want to ask a yes, no question. You never want to say, will you come to career day? You want to say, we're hoping to involve more alumni in career day, in class visits, and traveling with us to other alumni outposts. Which of these appeals to you most? So it isn't yes or no, it's select. Research shows that volunteers are most likely to start with episodic volunteering, and then they become more and more involved until they are ready for leadership roles. And areas of leadership, we have options aplenty there too. It can be leadership specific to your alumni association or your alumni board or your alumni council or whatever clever name you're putting to it. They might want to just be part of this. I want to find people. There's someone in every class who has done their utmost to stay in touch. In fact, one school that did that lost letter strategy where they sent a letter to all the found alumni and said, here are the ones we're missing. One woman for a school sent back 30 pages of updates. There's someone like that in every class. They just love to keep in touch. And now, because of Facebook and things like that, often they're very, very well connected. It's just a matter of connecting to the school too. So consider this. Your alumni have the benefit of an education from your school. Clearly, they would be excellent additions to all of your leadership bodies. So look to get them involved in every way. So we've talked about research, we've talked about communication, we've talked about engagement. Let's also talk about solicitation. Now, I know some of you are thinking, I can't wait to start asking these people for money and helping them feel good about themselves. Some of you might be slightly less enthused on that front, and if so, I would like you to consider this. Asking people for money is giving them the opportunity to put their resources at the disposal of the kingdom. To raise funds is to offer people the chance to invest what they have in the work of God. That is what you are doing. Catholic education is the work of God. So we want to give people this opportunity to build up the kingdom together through your school or the religious order that sponsored your school. Every effort you put forth in terms of your alumni solicitation means providing this adorable child with academic excellence and faith formations, the blessings, the benefits of Catholic education, giving this child the gift that will stay with her all the days of her life. So now that we've convinced you to ask all of your alumni for money, let's look at where they should do it. What kind of support should we be seeking? Well, actually, all of these categories, but not all at once. So like any good development program, you have a plan for when you solicit for annual fund, for reunion classes, for special project campaigns, when you educate about planned giving, how you make clear special event funding versus all of the others. In terms of your solicitation efforts, you want to use all available vehicles, and I'm sure that you do, or if you don't, you're going to do it soon. I just want to make one pitch here for tribute funds. One of the areas that we know alumni always talk about when they gather, when they're, reminiscing, is certain teachers, certain religious, certain administrators. And often tribute funds in honor of those people, memorial funds if they have already passed on, or solicitation letters from those people are highly effective. We hear over and over from alumni, we're so grateful for this, we're so grateful for that. And the opportunity to give back is truly welcome. In the event you have paid no attention to anything I've said for the last 49 minutes, we have this slide that talks about a lot of the possibilities in each of these areas. And because we are ever concerned about, not damaging your eyes, when you get the presentation, you'll get a full page version of this. Depending on the age of your school, Latin might have been part of the curriculum, or perhaps still is, in which case the people who graduated know how to conjugate the terminology of alumnus, alumna, alum, alumni, alumnae, alums. We provide this just in case you're talking with maybe a younger generation that does not have all of that expertise. Alrighty, we know there's been a lot of information in a very, very short period of time, so we're going to open this up to some questions in just a minute. Before then, I want to just mention a couple of things. First of all, in addition to your questions, please share your thoughts, your ideas, your comments. Tell us what's working in your school, as well as what you want to learn more about. We've given you lots of options here, but we know that we can't do everything all at once. But think about it in terms of what can we do in 30 days, what can we do in 90 days, what can we do in 60 days. Please, if there are other resources that would be helpful to you besides, the slides, the CSML, Catholic School Management Letter, the conferences that are coming up, if there is something that you think would be valuable, like, hey, you ought to offer a program on this. Why don't you come here and do a workshop on this? Things like that, tell us. We are here to serve. That is our job. And I also just want to say that, we're talking about treasures in our midst, and yes, we mean alumni and alumni parents, but also you people who are so committed to the mission and ministry of Catholic education. You make all the difference in the world, and the impact of your efforts is going out to all the world, as the gospel says we should. It is felt in every corner of the universe. So please remember this. At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Your alumni program reminds them of the deep gratitude they have and will assuredly lead to more and more treasures for your school. So now I am going to open this up to any questions that you have or that have come in to Matt.
We'll now open the floor for questions, as Mary mentioned. And as a reminder, to ask a question, type your question into the question box, which can be found to the left of the presentation window, or just click the purple Q&A icon and type in your question and then hit submit. Mary, the first question came in about, can you go into more detail about successful forms of solicitation? What is the most successful form of solicitation?
The most successful form of solicitation is in-person, one-on-one, or someone from the school and a couple. Absolutely, it is the best way to raise money because it gives you an opportunity to build your relationship, to suggest a specific amount, to observe the reaction that they have, to negotiate to an amount, to understand what funding priorities are most important to them. The next best way to do it, because I presume that you don't have enough people to go out and personally solicit every single graduate that you have, would be small group solicitation because you're still with them. And small group solicitation can be done either by ask amount or just by affiliation. The next best way would be over the phone, if that is realistic for you, because again, it gives you that opportunity to communicate in human to human. Then we have electronic solicitation and direct mail. Most mature development programs incorporate all of those as part of their annual fund efforts.
You had mentioned earlier in the presentation, to remind you if there was time, about keeping the original address in the database. Can you go back to that?
So this is the coolest thing. So there was a school, the class that was celebrating its 50th anniversary was, getting together, and one of the volunteers, they were using, they were looking for people using their permanent records. So they had the address of where everyone lived when he or she attended school. So one of the volunteers on the reunion committee went to those addresses and took a picture of the house for every single person. And they used that as the cover of the little reunion booklet. So you know how you show up for an event and it says, you get a table card that says you're at table 12 when it has your name on it? Well, it didn't have names on it. It had the picture of your house. And people went crazy for this because it was an area where a lot of people had moved away and hadn't been back to the neighborhood in a long time. The reunion wasn't held at the school for a variety of reasons. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I thought, I hope lots of schools steal this great idea, because imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for all your questions. For additional or more specific questions regarding Christian Brothers Services Catholic School Management or Christian Brothers Services Mission Advancement or Professional Development, please contact Mary Foley at 630-378-2454 or email her at mary.foley@cbservices.org. As a reminder, a downloadable copy of today's presentation can be found by clicking on the light green icon with a piece of paper at the bottom of the screen. This was the first webinar in our Spring 2019 webinar series. Please join us next Thursday, February 14th, for our next webinar entitled, Is Your Religious Driver Program Working? We will be reviewing and discussing the essential fleet policies, programs, and communications that should be built into any religious community's fleet risk management program. In addition, today's presenter, Mary J. Foley, will be presenting again on Thursday, April 25th, on the topic of planned giving. She will address planned giving vehicles, prospect identification trends, and giving the estate planning policies, promotions, communications, donor relation recognition, and program management. To register for these or any other webinar, please visit our webinar series website at cbservices.org/webinars.php. You can also visit this site to view all past webinars on demand. As a reminder, please fill out the 5-question survey to the right-hand side of your presentation window, and please opt in to receive the mailings from Catholic School Management. Once again, thank you to our speaker, Mary J. Foley, and as always, our thanks to you for attending today's webinar.